Hi, welcome to Travel Tales. I'm Judith, and I share experiences and stories from a lifetime of traveling. This is episode 7, and I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to go through this one. So, as you know, my videos are rather homespun anyway. So, I want to talk about New Orleans. Um, I am not a big jazz fan. We all have our own music preferences. Um, to share a little bit, of course I like 60s rock. That's when I was a teenager. I like some classical music. I like some folk music, even once in a while a little country music. Jazz has always been not in that group. I like a little soft jazz in the background, for ambiance, etc. But it just so happens that my partner, my significant other from Denmark, who lives in Denmark, has played jazz trumpet for all his life. And I felt like, with Louis Armstrong being his muse, mentor, and hero, I thought we really needed to go to New Orleans. He really needed to see that when he was over here on a visit. So I thought, okay, let's do this. So we flew to New Orleans, and I have to say that we went to some concerts where there's a lot of music in the streets, and I enjoyed that. That was fine. But let me tell you what I really liked about New Orleans, and this is not your usual take. I think your usual take are people that are jazz aficionados, and they're going there for the music, and they're going to just rave about all that. So I'm going to put that kind of on the side and tell you what I liked about New Orleans. The art museums. The Ogden Museum of Southern Art was an absolute terrific museum. And I have visited many art museums. It's something I love to do. But they had such interesting things there that I was very impressed. The New Orleans, what do you call it? The New Orleans Museum of Art, which also has an art garden, an outside garden, was a huge museum. And I can't say I did it justice. We only were able to get there once. And if you're like me in a museum, I've got to pick out 2 or 3 things I really want to look at, because after an hour and a half, I'm not seeing anymore. I can only take in so much, and my back can only take in so much standing and looking. But those 2 museums were very impressive, and so I was real pleased with that. The second thing that I really loved was, okay, the bread pudding. And I've had bread pudding before, but every time we had dinner, we were there about a week. Every time we had dinner, the restaurant would have a different kind of bread pudding. Bread pudding made with bourbon, or bread pudding made with oh gosh, what else? Brandy or whatever. And then they'd have a chocolate one, and then they'd have a white chocolate one, and then they'd have a um, vanilla type. I mean, the bread pudding everywhere I went. I'm surprised I didn't gain more weight than I did, because I had at least one bread pudding a day and just absolutely loved it. Have I had bread pudding since? Yes, several times. I'm sure I've had bread pudding, but nothing was like having bread pudding in the South, in New Orleans in particular. So I'm a big bread pudding fan. The other thing that absolutely transported me was one night, and we weren't there in Mardi Gras or anything like that, but there was a parade, and we happened on it. We didn't know it was coming. We were just walking down the street, and all of a sudden there was this huge parade with all these fantastic floats and music, and and every float was throwing out all those necklaces and all kinds of other stuff. And we stood there in the street. It was dark. It was evening, and it was like you were, I don't know, it was an experience of almost total joy. I just felt so, it was so fun and so unexpected and so beautiful in the night, and all these necklaces and other little things as well. and we just stood there and just stood and watched the parade, and I think the smile on my face couldn't have gotten any bigger. I just thought it was just such a wonderful, wonderful experience. So, even if you are not the biggest jazz fan in the world, New Orleans is definitely worth to spend some time there. Oh, and one other thing we did was we did take a boat out on one of the swamps, and I got to hold a baby alligator and things like that. And we also got to see some slave quarters on a plantation. So there's a lot of history, of course, there's a lot of history there of many cultures, really. And so I would definitely recommend it. It was it was really a fun time.